She made history giving birth to septuplets in 1997. Here's what they look like now. A doctor once told her that carrying all 7 babies to term would likely kill her, and that most of them would die anyway. She looked him in the eye and said no. 28 years later, all 7 of those babies are grown adults with careers, spouses, and children of their own, and the woman who defied an entire medical team is now a grandmother watching her impossible decision keep paying off. This is the real story of the McCoy septuplets and what actually happened to each of them. It starts in Carlisle, Iowa, a small town where everybody knows everybody. Bobby and Kenny McCoy already had one daughter, Michaela, and they wanted to give her a sibling. It didn't happen easily. Bobby struggled with fertility issues, and after trying for years, her doctor prescribed a medication called Metrodin to help trigger ovulation. It's a common treatment, and doctors are always careful to warn patients about the chance of having twins, or in rare cases, triplets. Nobody expected what came next. At around 6 weeks along, Bobby went in for a routine ultrasound. The technician started counting heartbeats on the screen and kept counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 separate heartbeats, all inside one woman's body. It's the kind of moment that doesn't have a script because almost nobody in the history of modern medicine had lived through it. A handful of septuplet pregnancies had been recorded before, but none of them had ever produced 7 surviving children. The odds were stacked against every single one of these babies before they'd even developed fingers. Within days, Bobby and Kenny were sitting across from a team of specialists at Iowa Methodist Medical Center in Des Moines. The doctors laid out the medical reality as plainly as they could. A human body is built to carry 1 baby, sometimes 2, occasionally 3 with serious risk. 7 is a different category of danger entirely. Carrying 7 fetuses meant a heightened chance of miscarriage, stillbirth, severe preeclampsia, and life-threatening complications for Bobby herself. For the babies, the outlook was just as grim: extreme prematurity, dangerously low birth weights, underdeveloped lungs, and a real chance that several of them wouldn't survive their first days. This is the point where doctors, in cases like this, often recommend what's called selective reduction, a procedure to remove some of the fetuses early in the pregnancy in order to improve the survival odds and health outcomes for the ones who remain. It's a legitimate, medically supported option that many families have chosen in similar high-order multiple pregnancies, and it's often because doctors genuinely want to protect the mother and give the remaining babies a better shot at a healthy life. For Bobby and Kenny, though, it wasn't a decision they were willing to make. As devout Baptists, they believed every one of those 7 heartbeats deserved a chance, and they told the medical team they wanted to try to carry all 7. It's important to say clearly that this was an intensely personal and difficult choice, not a simple one, and doctors on both sides of these conversations are acting out of genuine care for their patients. What made the McCoys' case extraordinary wasn't that they rejected their doctor's concerns. They didn't. It's that they chose to accept an enormous, well-documented risk in pursuit of an outcome nobody could guarantee. Once word got out that an Iowa woman was pregnant with septuplets and had chosen not to reduce, the story exploded. This was 1997, when tabloid talk shows and cable news were hungry for exactly this kind of headline. Strangers wrote letters by the thousands, some offering prayers and encouragement, others accusing Bobby of recklessness. Ethicists debated the case in newspaper columns. Pastors brought it up in sermons. Bobby, a private, soft-spoken woman from a town of a few thousand people, suddenly had her pregnancy discussed on national television by people she'd never met. Meanwhile, her body was doing something almost no human body had ever been asked to do. She spent the final months of the pregnancy on strict bed rest, unable to stand for more than a few minutes without help. She gained an extraordinary amount of weight, carrying the equivalent load of multiple full-term pregnancies at once. Volunteers from her church started showing up to help her get through each day, sitting with her, bringing meals, helping her simply roll over in bed. It became a community effort long before the babies ever arrived. On November 19, 1997, at roughly 30 weeks, significantly premature, but further along than almost anyone expected her to reach, Bobby delivered all 7 babies by cesarean section at Iowa Methodist. A team of more than 40 specialists was on hand, and the delivery itself took only a matter of minutes, baby after baby handed off to a separate team of doctors and nurses. Each one was tiny, most weighing under 3 pounds. Kenneth Robert was born first, followed by Alexis May, Natalie Sue, Kelsey, and Nathan Roy, Brandon James, and Joel Stephen. All 7 were alive. All 7 were breathing. It was, by every medical expectation going in, not supposed to happen this way. The real fight, though, was just beginning. The babies spent months in the neonatal intensive care unit, hooked up to ventilators and monitors, fighting for every ounce of weight gain. Premature birth at that stage carries serious long-term risks, and the McCoy babies weren't spared. 2 of the 7, Alexis and Nathan, were later diagnosed with cerebral palsy, a condition tied to their early birth that would affect their mobility and development in the years that followed. It's a reminder that even a story with a headline this triumphant carried real, lasting medical challenges for some of the children involved, and those challenges are part of their story too, not something to gloss over. While the babies fought to grow stronger, the outside world reacted in a way nobody could have predicted. Donations poured in from across the country. A local business offered to help build the family a larger home to accommodate 8 children. Companies sent diapers and formula. President Bill Clinton personally called the family to congratulate them. Reality television producers came knocking with offers. Bobby and Kenny turned most of it down. They accepted practical help where they genuinely needed it, but they were adamant that they didn't want their children raised as a spectacle, and they declined the cameras that wanted to follow their kids around full-time. What followed was, by design, an almost defiantly ordinary childhood. 7 kids crammed into one household meant a level of daily logistics that's hard to picture. Dozens of bottles a day, mountains of laundry, a rotating shift of church volunteers who showed up simply to help hold a baby, so Bobby could close her eyes for 20 minutes. As the kids grew, they went to public school in Carlisle, did chores, got in trouble like any other kids, and shared bedrooms and hammer-downs. Outside the house, they were minor celebrities who couldn't go to the grocery store without somebody recognizing them. Inside the house, their parents worked hard to make sure none of that mattered. That closeness between the 7 of them became one of the defining parts of their story. Growing up alongside 6 other people going through the exact same milestones at the exact same time creates a bond that's genuinely rare. They have inside jokes nobody outside the family understands. They can tell what one another is thinking without a word being said. Even now, they'll bring up small shared memories from childhood, like a tune they all learned parts to in the school band, and slip right back into them the moment they are together. In May of 2016, the town of Carlisle packed into the high school auditorium to watch all 7 of them graduate on the same stage. It's worth sitting with what that moment actually meant. Alexis, who had cerebral palsy and had spent years in physical therapy learning to walk, crossed that stage under her own power. So did Nathan, who also lived with cerebral palsy. Every single one of the 7 babies that a room full of specialists in 1997 had warned might not survive infancy was standing there in a cap and gown 19 years later. Bobby and Kenny watched from the audience, and by every account, it's one of the moments that stayed with them the most. So where are they now, in their late 20s, years removed from that graduation stage and decades removed from that NICU? Their lives have gone in 7 genuinely different directions, and that's really the heart of how this story ends up. Brandon James joined the United States Army and built a career there, rising to the rank of sergeant. He met his wife, Alana, while stationed on base, and the 2 of them now have a daughter named Ellie, which makes Bobby and Kenny grandparents through their first septuplet to start a family. Because of the nature of military service, the family keeps details about Brandon's current posting private, for straightforward security reasons rather than any secrecy about the family itself. Kenneth Robert, who still goes by Kenny, trained as a cabinet maker and works at a custom cabinetry company in central Iowa, building detailed, hands-on woodwork for homes across the region. Is married to a woman named Cynthia, and has talked openly about how strange the quiet of a 2-person household can feel after growing up in a house with 6 other siblings underfoot at all times. Joel Stephen and Nathan Roy both went on to earn degrees in computer information systems from Hannibal-LaGrange University, a small college just across the Missouri state line where several of the septuplets attended together. Joel now works in IT for a major electronics manufacturer in Iowa, while Nathan works in IT at a health insurance company based in Des Moines. Nathan, despite living with cerebral palsy, has built an independent adult life, his own apartment, his own job, his own routine. And his sister Alexis has spoken with real pride about watching him do all of that on his own terms. Natalie Sue studied exercise science and went on to work as a patient care technician at a local hospital, a job that carried extra weight during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. She since continued her education, pursuing further studies in athletic training. Kelsey Ann initially studied music before shifting into public relations, and after working in PR and campus journalism, she now works in a medical office. Alexis May, who also has cerebral palsy, earned a degree in liberal arts and now works with children, a role that lets her pass along the same kind of encouragement she received growing up. Their oldest sister Michaela, the daughter Bobby and Kenny originally hoped to give a sibling to, has also grown up, gotten married, and started a family of her own, meaning Bobby and Kenny now have grandchildren on both sides of their children. The house the community once built for the family to help them manage raising 8 kids under one roof has since been donated to a nonprofit that supports young mothers, a fitting next chapter for a home that was built entirely out of other people's generosity in the first place. What struck a lot of people who followed this family over the years isn't really the birth story anymore, it's how normal everything that came after actually looks. These are 7 adults with day jobs, mortgages, marriages, and the same everyday struggles as anyone else their age. They get together when they can. They argue about whose turn it is to do the dishes, and they still fall back into old inside jokes the second they are all in the same room. Bobby has said that one of her favorite things now is simply seeing the driveway full of cars when everyone comes home at once, noisy, crowded, and exactly what she hoped for back when there was a room full of doctors telling her it might never happen at all. It's worth being honest that this story isn't a simple, uncomplicated fairy tale. 2 of the 7 live with a lifelong condition tied directly to how early they were born, and the medical risks their mother faced were real and serious, not exaggerated for effect. Doctors who recommend reduction in these situations aren't villains in the story. They are trying to protect their patients using the best evidence available. What makes the McCoy family's outcome remarkable isn't that the risk wasn't real. It's that, in this particular case, an outcome that the odds strongly argued against actually happened, and it happened because 2 people were willing to accept those odds. Almost 3 decades after that ultrasound in Carlisle, Iowa, 7 names that once belonged to 7 fragile babies in 7 separate incubators now belong to 7 working adults living their own lives, hundreds of miles apart in some cases, but still pulled back together by something that started before any of them could even open their eyes. If you want to see stories like this one, real people, real outcomes, told honestly, stick around, because there are more of them coming.